Guys, what are we talking about today?
We're here to talk to Faith. We're flipping the camera and the microphones around to talk to Faith about growth marketing and how she has used it over the last few years to help grow Gun.io from a bootstrap company to where we are now. So I guess like when you first started, you were the everyman for Tasia and Tyler. You did all of it.
She changed genders.
We had other
the every
people
woman
on the team too.
How did your role how did it grow to where you started focusing on growth marketing, and why that over any of the other avenues that you could have taken in a growing company?
I think just generally when you're thinking about like a smaller business, which we were 4 years ago, there's not a small business doesn't have a need for like a brand marketer, right? Or somebody to come and do even like content to some extent. Like a small business, the only marketing need they have really is growth marketing. And I guess it probably makes sense to define growth marketing. If you listen to Twitter, growth marketing is just when dudes do marketing.
That's true.
But it's not true.
It's not true. But I mean, marketing, I think like marketing just has like, it's a profession that's been around forever. And I think similar to like ad sales, people are like, oh yeah, marketers, they like sit around a table with, their Etch-a-Sketches and think about what their gut says to do. And that's what they spend millions of dollars on.
That sounds sick.
It does sound sick.
That sounds fucking dope. Like, what? I want that job.
I want that job too, but I was always trash at the Etch-a-Sketch.
We can get you some Tinker toys.
Growth marketing, I think there's like two kind of key differentiators between marketing and growth marketing. One is growth marketing tends to think about the full funnel. So instead of just acquisition, how do we get new customers in the door as leads? We're thinking about what happens after that. How do we convert them? What happens through the sales process all the way to retention, right? The other bit is growth marketing tends to be more experimentation focused. So running like really quick cycles to figure out what works and what doesn't. And that second piece is really what serves a small business, right? Because when you're just starting to build traction, you have to operate that way, right? Like you have to throw a bunch of shit at the wall to see what sticks. And then from there, obviously, you can build out your marketing team and get a little bit more specialized. But I don't know, Tasia, I feel like you're the person to talk to about this. Like, what was the need when I came on?
We kind of had the vision that we wanted to build out a marketing department because, part of the thesis was, hey, like recruiting is, it's like kind of a boring industry. And I think, at the time we were trying to operate in a pretty unique way, and we needed help like with the storytelling of the way that we were operating, right? But it just so happened that a big part of our storytelling component involved like the mechanical strategy of ad spend, which is considered a part of marketing, but like our business was so reliant on inbound that like actually marketing was like a really important department for us. Not only because of the direction of the company and like I think our unique selling proposition and storytelling that well, but also because it's like pretty, it's like you're managing, I don't know, $100,000 budget basically, right? Just in like ads alone or close to that.
Yeah.
I think we always knew that. And I think what struck us about you, if I'm remembering correctly, is that like you had a really good facility and command of the language, which is like probably really what you need to effectively storytell. And also like, we could sense that kind of like that hustler mentality, that get shit done mentality. You had your own business, you had bought a house, like things like that, right? That are like signaling to the level of effort that you would have professionally. And so it was like we wanted to make storytelling a key part of our strategy. We knew we were reliant on ads and we needed somebody who could grow into that and eventually manage that whole function for us. I think we made the right decision. It's working out. Yeah. I think it was right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I hope so.
But you came in and you basically talked to customers to start. I mean, that's what you did, right? Yeah.
Right. I mean, at the stage we were, and I'm thinking about like people who are operating small businesses who might be listening and thinking about like, customer acquisition, starting to figure out their traction channels. Like we were still very much in the phase of like, how do we make our sales process run effectively? Right? How do we convert as many leads as possible so we can make our cost per lead numbers make sense? So, yeah, for my first like 6 to 8 months, I was picking up the phone immediately when a lead signed up and saying, "Hey, what do you need? How can we help you?" Like just interviewing them and getting as much information as we could, building a little bit of rapport. And that was like our first experiment. The question was, if we call leads within 5 minutes of them submitting a lead form, will they convert at a higher rate? And the answer was yes. So that was
We should go back to basics.
right.
I agree.
Right. I talk about it all the time.
We're doing so much shit that I feel like that's the key.
Yeah.
Totally.
But even that, like we often talk about it like, haha, remember when Faith was like doing customer discovery calls, but it's not outside the scope of growth marketing because like we said, growth marketing it's full funnel. You have to think about everything that happens from the time that somebody first hears about your brand to when they're a customer and you're trying to retain them for, a number of months or years.
Totally.
Do you have like a favorite experiment that you've run, even if it didn't go how you thought it would? I feel like we're given a lot of freedom here, more freedom than like anywhere I've ever worked to like just try shit.
Wait, I didn't know that.
I feel like experiments aren't usually sexy. What, that we have freedom?
I didn't authorize that.
I mean, like they're super small tests, right? Like it's not like a big sexy thing is more of like a campaign, like a couple of years ago for April Fool's Day, we like created a spoof website and it was doggun.io.
Yes.
How sick.
And everyone's dogs were on it. And we were like offering the dog whatever services they offered. And that was hilarious, but that wasn't an experiment, right? Like experiments are like, if I change this like headline copy, can I get 0.002% more people to convert?
The sexy stuff.
Right, exactly. The stuff that everybody wants to do with their professional time. But that is like, I don't know. Zuckerberg always says that the best thing Facebook did was invent the growth team, which maybe, I don't know. But like that's why in the early kind of 2010s, everybody was like hype on growth teams because they were like, oh, well, that's how Facebook figured out their retention. They were like, the question was, how can we get people to stay on Facebook longer? And so the Facebook product team or the Facebook growth team was just running these like super teeny incremental experiments.
Yeah.
So we definitely do that. I think we're still kind of building that muscle, but maybe a larger one is the Wayfair, right? Like our newsletter started as an experiment, which was like, if we consistently email folks in our network, both developers and clients, every single week, A, can we get people and like more people engaged? And B, can we get more leads ultimately to convert, even if they don't convert right away? So that one's been fun. So far, the answer is yes. We've been doing it for 4 years. So,
aren't you? It's like 30,000 subscribers plus at this point.
mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
Yeah, a little more than 30,000 subscribers, and we get like between 30 and 40% opens every week.
That's huge.
It's like triple probably the average, right?
Pretty good for a newsletter. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to make like crazy claims, but it's definitely good. Probably better open rate than I get in my emails to my family. So
average open rate for newsletters. We can solve this right now. Yeah. All right. What do you guys think it is?
I think it's somewhere around like 7 to 8%.
Cool. Okay.
Eight. I would say 18%.
Okay. Cool. Abby's right. It's closer to 10%.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So that's huge. I mean, that's a shout.
Shout
He does
out
not need a shout
to
out. Shout out to Wayfarer.
to Wayfair readers. I don't know why they like it, but I don't know. I feel like I get so much shit in my email. It's not shit. It's like people spend a lot of time writing helpful stuff. Like I get James Clear's email and just like a bunch of other kind of like thought leaders. Um, but I just don't always have time for that. And also sometimes I'm like, I don't want my brain to work. I mostly just want to like clear out my inbox and maybe like laugh a little bit.
I don't know. I think then that's been like a good experiment, and kind of ties in like all of the parts of where you've grown as a growth marketer with the company. Do you think that there are things that like methods that you found that work really well in tech hiring that would work elsewhere really well, or things that you think are specific to tech hiring?
Yeah, in terms of like growth strategies.
Yeah, because we've talked a lot. We've talked a lot, at least like one on one, about how there's just like marketing to developers in general is really hard. You've done a great job
Mm,
seeing where we're at.
yeah. Well, I can't take that's not I like stepped into a like very nice brand that like props to Tasia and Rich at the beginning. Like the North Star was like, what can we do to make developers' lives better? And they created a brand and a brand promise that was really resonant with devs. And up until now, I mean, like a decade of business, and we have barely spent any kind of money on marketing to developers because we really rely on reputation and relationship building there. Um, so I would say like for people that are operating like in some sort of like developer facing marketing space, the advice is like just have a talent first approach and figure out what it is you can do to provide value and build relationships with developers.
That's true.
And that comes first.
Yeah. I think also like you're really good at being authentic, Faith. So I'm thinking about Rich when I said like unfuck something. That was like an actual action item on his like developer roadmap, right? Like and that's probably like it's not all developers because some I'm thinking about David G. They operate differently, but I think Rich was really good at like being himself,
Yeah.
and I think we're really good at being ourselves just as a business in terms of like the personality that we show through the storytelling that you and Abby and everybody else really that like we're ramping up. Like we're able to like capture the value of what we're doing in a way that feels authentic. I think that's why the Wayfarer makes sense. And yeah, we had a good brand, but I think we've done a good job of building the marketing team around people who show up authentically such that they're able to tell an authentic story of what the company is doing.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Especially working in like a dev
Yeah.
facing marketing role because like our business, obviously we have our talent, our developers on one side, and then our clients or hiring companies on the other.
Yeah.
But ultimately they're usually the same people, right? Like developers hire other developers through gun.io. And so everything we do has to resonate with devs. And yeah, authenticity goes a long way for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think people that are probably more mathematically and engineering inclined tend to be more skeptical just by nature because of the nature of the profession. Like that's a huge value to be skeptical of how things are built. Um, and so probably our market's more discerning than the average market to market into. And so I don't know, I'm sure you guys have faced that challenge. Like, why don't you talk
Mhm.
about that actually? How have you faced that challenge? Is that something that you think about? Like, you're not selling like razors. You know what I mean? Do you ever lay awake at night like, fuck, how do I market this effectively?
I think it's fun to market, honestly, because there's I feel like the room you have to play when it comes to marketing is much greater when you have a really clear idea of um, your competitive advantage, like who you're competing with, why you think you're better than them. I am a very competitive person in some things, in things that I think I'm good at. If I think I'm bad at it, I'm like, please be my guest. But yeah, I don't feel like I struggle with like how am I going to tell this story in a compelling way? Like how am I going to land this market? It's more there's just so much. There's so much possibility that that's I think where any of like my anxiety comes from is like how am I going to have like the time and resources to test everything that we want to try?
Mm.
There's like an overwhelming amount of things you could try.
Right. I guess that's like my other piece of advice for folks that are building companies and starting to think about whether it's marketing, growth marketing, is as soon as you can, you should have somebody whose job it is to think about what happens next. Because it's really easy on a growth marketing team as you're running these kind of like fast cycle experiments to be like, oh shit, that worked. We need to do that. And just like before you know it, you're stuck in the weeds, just like operating these things. And you don't know like what the next thing is that you're going to try. So having somebody whose job it is to like not really operate the day to day, but to be thinking about what has to happen next, I think is like key. And I don't think you're too small ever to do it. Like if you've got a team of like 4 plus, that's probably big enough to have somebody who's just thinking about future focused stuff.
Okay, how do you force rank and prioritize your experiments? What's your methodology?
Mm.
Mm.
I do the old 2 axis between effort and impact, right? So a higher impact, lower effort stuff. And it's not like a end all be all, right? Like if something is like super high impact and high effort, that doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. And by effort, we can say maybe investment's a better word, right? So it's like time investment, but also like money required. It's not an immediate no, but it helps you force rank stuff and choose like some easy wins, high impact, low investment things, obviously, are worth trying right away. I think after that, like obviously, you'll still have things on the table. And I think our team's kind of unique in this sense. Our growth marketing team operates a lot like a dev team just by nature of like working so closely with our dev team. So we organize our work into milestones. We use GitHub for all of our like team planning. But also we think a lot about context switching. So if there's a lot of stuff that's on the table we could possibly do in the span of like a quarter or a year, we tend to try to bulk things together that are in like the same kind of context or headspace, especially if it's going to be owned by a certain person.
Do you see the world differently as a marketer because you've worked in marketing? Like, are you able to like look at a brand and be like, oh, that's interesting, the angle that they're taking?
It's almost problematic for me.
Really?
Oh my God. Like I'll see something and be like, wow, that was like, especially having a background in copywriting, I'll be like, that was really well written. Or it's like, do you realize what you just said? Without really thinking about it. I see and do that everywhere.
Yeah. I do too. I mean, like nitpicky stuff, like typos on websites or misplaced commas. I'm like, come on, guys. I mean, we have that too, though. Like, we're not perfect. But I think, like, strategy wise, I'm more critical because I did spend so much time kind of in the middle of our funnel. I'm more critical of like early to mid funnel strategies.
Got
So
it. Like
if
onboarding
I like
or
reach
something.
out, yeah, if I reach out to like another kind of like services company, like, and I have an inquiry about hiring them or whatever, and their process is like abrasive in any way, I'll like give them the feedback
Totally.
just because like, it's not good and it's going to save them time if like somebody is honest with them.
I think that also is like, I mean, obviously I've only been here a short time, but I think that that's how like you have to take that feedback to grow. Like I see the things that come in an intercom in response to emails that we're sending out. And it's like some of the feedback is really necessary, even if it's painful to hear. If you want the best product for the people that you're serving, that's inevitably going to come with people saying like, no, this, how you're doing this right now does not work.
I feel like that's another thing we do well that I would like encourage other companies our size to prioritize is like talking to customers as much as possible and just like working it into your kind of daily process as a company, right? Like we do like larger bi-yearly surveys of like both customers and developers, but like pretty consistently we're getting feedback in the door, whether it's through intercom, our community Slack, monthly surveys with active clients. Like we're getting all of this and it's being distributed basically to the whole team. Like we've got these open channels in Slack where people can jump in and just kind of absorb these sentiments through osmosis, which I think is like it's huge. It's like for a growth marketing team, but also just for like a team our size where everybody has to be super rooted in what our customers are saying, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like our company has like two big cycles of like two big growth cycles. One cycle is like just outreach and awareness, like reaching more and more people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other cycle is like feedback collection, prioritization, implementation. That makes the product better, and then you reach more people, and then that's how you build a company.
And that's it, guys.
Write
Easy
down
as that.
3 steps.
3 steps that'll make you rich in 2023. No, but I think growth marketing is integral for both loops, in feedback collection and in awareness generation.
That's a way better. I like your definition that you just came up with of growth marketing better than the actual definition of growth marketing.
Which is what?
Which is it tends to think about the whole funnel and it tends to be more data driven than marketing. I think the data driven piece is such bullshit though. Like I really do, because I don't know a single marketer, even people who don't have like growth in front of their marketing title, who is not incredibly data driven. Like marketing is all about data.
I mean, like I think coming from like a traditional brand marketing background, I think for me it's always been so slow to produce data that it's like how do you measure brand sentiment, brand recognition, stuff like that takes a really long time to kind of build, even if it's not somebody who's like actively using your product. That it's not that I don't care about the data, it's just that it moves so slow sometimes that it's not top of my mind.
Yeah.
Which is why I find like growth marketing so interesting, because it's like I really like the analytical side of development. You know, like there's a right way to do this. There are multiple right ways to do this, but there's one outcome. I think it's really cool what you do and how it differs from like what I've done in the past.
No, that's interesting, because this is my first marketing job. I've never marketed anything before. So I always appreciate hearing like, what is it like in other companies? Like, is there actually a difference between what we do and what someone might do at like a more traditional marketing team, especially in like a marketing team that's selling like a good rather than a service like us?
It feels a little soul sucking. We're all parties to consumerism, whatever. But to be a part of a team like this, where it's like what we're selling is like a better option for people to make their life better.
Right.
So much more, like at the end of the day, so much more satisfying than selling shoes.
Yeah, I don't think I could be fulfilled by like selling face cream.
Shit, if it works.
But your skin would glow.
I just don't think it would do it for me.
Yeah, then why not?
If it works.
Yeah, no, I think I think you guys have done a great job of building like a strategy agnostic but a results oriented culture in growth marketing. You know, like whatever works, let's do it. Let's do the thing that generates the most results. I think that's good.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks, Deja. Appreciate it.
So like growth marketing, to me, at least the way that I look at it, is like a piece of the overall growth puzzle. Like you want to grow a company from, let's say, I don't know, there's like 10K MRR is like the first benchmark for like a company that's like on the way to making it. Like you've proved the idea, blah, 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 it's working. You know, go from 10K monthly recurring revenue to like your first million in revenue. How would a founding team, maybe 2, 3 people, how would they figure out like the right strategy to get to a million in revenue from 120 in revenue? Where does growth marketing play in that?
I think too often people get psyched on growth before they have their most viable company nailed down, which, and I'm like paraphrasing from someone much smarter than me, like your most viable company means like you've got your business model nailed down, like you understand what you're charging, your cogs, all that. You understand the ecosystem that you're operating in, which is not just your customers, but like, for example, if I'm selling face cream, right? Like the ecosystem is like my customers, but it's also the manufacturers, it's my competitors, it's laws in different countries around like which chemicals can and can't be in your face creams. And then the third is obviously understanding your value propositions. And I think too often that question, Tasia, that you just posed, like, how are you going to get to your first million in revenue is like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, like, how am I going to get as many customers as possible? Um, but really, your first step is to nail your most viable company. And then from there, you can think about growth. But let's assume that somebody's like got all that stuff nailed, ready to rock. I would highly recommend that they read the book Traction, which Tasia, you recommended to me. And it just does a really good job of explaining, especially to a founder, somebody who doesn't come from a marketing background, like, here are all your possible traction channels. And you might have a pretty good idea that if you're selling face cream, your primary channel is going to be Instagram, but you might be surprised. So, like, let's talk about all the possible ways you could develop traction. And then let's narrow those down based on like a really kind of intuitive strategy. That's it. That's the formula for success, guys. If you wanna if you wanna make $1 million in revenue.
Do you think all those things like figuring out tax laws, COGS, does that fall within the purview of growth? So, like, actually, 2 questions. What's the difference between growth and growth marketing? And then under which umbrella do those things fall into? I have my own view, but I'm curious about yours, obviously. This is your interview, so.
I think like we can talk about the functions and then we can talk about the people, right? Like the functions, if you're an early stage company, like the functions might all fall under one person's purview, and that person is probably the founder.
Sure.
So whether it's like growth or growth marketing, like it's your job probably if you're the founder and you're operating solo. Your second question was like, okay, so like what's the difference between growth and growth marketing? Um, I don't know. I mean, I would say like I by nature of just like being nosy and kind of like obsessive about things, like I feel like I have a really kind of wide purview here. Like I think about a lot of shit that probably is not under the marketing umbrella. And I think all of it like is to serve growth. So for example, like let's say we uncover a common sentiment within our customers who tend to churn before they hit their LTV, right? It is my job as a growth marketer to think about what was the story that these folks heard that brought them to gun? And is that a story that we can or that we intended to make good on? And if
Mm.
we intended to, but we couldn't, like, why is that? It's my job as a growth marketer to take that sentiment that's like rooted super deep in the funnel, right? That's about like churn and think about how we can make adjustments at the top of the funnel and the mid funnel to prevent that. While, of course, like, you know, CSMs, account managers are working kind of on the front lines. I don't know if that answers your question, Tasia, or just creates more questions. But how would you define the difference?
It's not my interview, so I played the fifth.
Ah!
I tend to be like pretty rigid in most things, but I think like departmental scope is so company specific and like also so personality specific. Like actually that's one thing that I've learned probably in the last couple of years is like how much personal disposition and the personalities of the players on the team actually dictate the scope of functions and of departments,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because some people want to be like, they want to be an inch wide and a mile deep, just killing it on a very narrow set of things. You know, David G comes to mind, right? Like, and then some people want to be like really wide berth, like touching all different functions to try to improve different things. And that's gray. And, you know, a lot of it is like, I think expectations inform behavior, like maybe their titles inform what they want to do, but then also behavior informs expectations. Like if somebody touches all facets of the company and they do a good job, like with you and touching the revenue part and the sales part and the experiments are good, it's like keep going, right? Like that's everybody's incentivized to let that person keep going and continue to touch everything. So I don't like really have in my mind like really rigid distinctions between departments, like growth versus growth marketing versus marketing. I think it's like whatever nomenclature is really workable and solid. And then so much of it is like unique to the specific company and the stage and all that stuff.
Mm.
That's how I think about it. But
A lot of companies will do, like, when they think of growth teams, they'll do like a growth pod, right? So there's like a product manager, there's a designer, there's a developer, there's a marketer sometimes. And these growth pods are all over the company, right? Like they'll insert themselves maybe in like a really specific feature that needs to be tested and improved upon, or a really specific stage in the sales process.
all right,
And so that's like traditional growth is these kind of like chameleon pods that can jump into any team. Um, our needs specifically when I came on, and I think today is growth marketing, which is like we're not quite big enough to have like a generalized marketing team. We're still kind of learning. We've got to experiment quickly, figure out like what it is that's going to be like our acquisition machine. So that's why we do growth marketing. So a lot of the same practices that a growth pod might have, we do just in the context of marketing, right?
We are the growth pod.
Yeah.
Yes. Everybody's best interest is like, how do we help the company grow? Because, that just,
yeah,
otherwise, what are you doing here? I
totally,
guess.
yeah. If it's a good company,
And I see like the marketing arm of that is like,
Mhm.
how do you put all of these efforts out into the world?
mm-hmm,
How
totally.
do you make everybody in the company who's trying to achieve this
Mhm.
singular goal? How do you make them look good? How do you let people know that, that this is being done for their benefit without sounding like I'm doing it for you?
Mhm.
You know?
Yes,
Right back to storytelling.
it's all
That's
storytelling, the most powerful skill for a non-technical person
yeah.
in the game.
Well, Faith, is there anything else you want to share about growth marketing and gun?
Um no, I mean, I would say, like I come from a super non-traditional background. I was an 8th grade teacher. I worked in like international NGOs before this. So I would say if you are founding a business, you're thinking about growth, if you are somebody who wants to get into growth marketing yourself, I would just say like read as much as you possibly can, learn as much as you possibly can. There's a ton of awesome resources, people way smarter than me that I've learned from. So just take, I would say like an hour a day and just ingest. Start with traction for sure.
You know, we didn't validate. So here's what I'll say about Faith's tenure. Faith, I think you started, we were doing like 500,000 in top line revenue or something like that, right? Yeah, maybe 500,000 top line.
Hmm.
This year, I don't know, we're on track for 10 or 12 and top line million. And so that's, I don't know, 20x fold increase in the revenue over the last some odd years. So, you know,
Mhm.
4 years. All right, you're counting every day, I see. So
4.
I'm just fucking with you.
No, I just know I'm
That's true.
dangerously close to hitting 200 Wayfair episodes. But yeah, that's 20-fold growth in 4 years. It's pretty
Yeah,
good.
that's solid. And so a lot of this stuff is not just theory. It's like stuff that's come out of your experience and presiding over that growth. And in many cases, inducing that growth. So,
Yeah. Well, I have not done it alone. I'm obviously very thankful for the team here and the space to do it. I think if you have an opportunity to work on a team where there's a lot of room for experimentation and creativity, definitely take it, because I think that's why we've had so much fun here and obviously had so much success. So
true.
thanks for listening to the Frontier Podcast powered by Gun.io. We drop 2 episodes per week, so if you like this episode, be sure to subscribe on your platform of choice and come hang out with us again next week and bring all your internet friends. If you have questions or recommendations, just shoot us a Twitter DM at The Frontier Pod, and we'll see you next week.